fight for abolition, reimagines justice, and explores the intersection of immigration and the criminal legal system, starting with this series that we call Crimmigration, brought to you by Freedom to Thrive, an organization here to challenge the status quo, dismantle oppressive systems, and build a world where our communities can truly thrive. Each episode in the series, we sit down with powerful voices from organizers to activists, community leaders, and allies who are leading the charge for change. We'll unpack the real impact of our current systems, discuss the importance of abolition, and share the tools, strategies needed to organize for a more just future. Whether you're new to this movement or a seasoned advocate, the space is for you. Our work is led and informed by people directly impacted by the immigration or prison system, who have been or have had loved ones deported or locked up. Their experiences with crimmigration is also impacted by the intersections of race, gender, housing, education, and labor. Join us to decriminalize, reparate, and liberate our communities. This is Freedom to Thrive. Let's get started.
Well, hello, my peoples. Welcome to the Freedom to Thrive podcast, the Crimmigration Stories. And once again, I'm here with really good company. My friends Kay, Karim, and DJ C-Mav. Before we begin, though, I want to give a special shout out to somebody who's about to have a birthday. On Monday, Kay will be celebrating a new year.
You'll tell her she was a Sag. I don't sneaky one there.
We hope you enjoy your day, you take it off, you do good things, and enjoy yourself. Today's episode, we wanted to focus on surviving, protecting, and fighting back against all the terrible things that have been talked about by the incoming administration in the White House. The worst thing that we could do is just sit at home with our arms crossed, feeling like that's it, we can do nothing else. And for that, what we thought is that we could talk about obviously what can we do as individuals, what can we do as a community together, what are the community organizing strategies. But we also wanted to talk about, well, what are the legal tools, the legal strategies that are already in place? They may threaten us and they may want to change all kinds of things, but there are things that we could do, we could use. So we're hoping that today we focus on the legal tools, the legal strategies, and we'll also make an announcement about an action that is happening in Boston sometime later in the episode. But right now, I'm going to hand it over to Kay. And in the next episode, hopefully we'll have a guest speaker who can hopefully talk a little bit about something called the Neighborhood Defense Committees and how that model has been incredibly successful at fighting back all this draconian racist policies and structures and the system. And hopefully that also will be a great show. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to hand it over to Kay. And, please introduce ourselves. Don't just sit there, say hello to the audience, say hello to the peoples.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So again, my name is Kay. I'm Freedom to Thrive's We Rise coordinator. And we really thought that it'd be important to really to have some conversation and dialogue about how folks can fight back with this new administration. So I really want to jump in. Wait, am I going to ask, does anyone else want to introduce themselves before I jump in and start asking Krim some questions?
Man, we don't need to know each other. Everybody knows us.
You tell them, Kay.
We already out there. We out here already.
The way she said you got to ask me some questions. I'm kind of scared.
You're about to be deposed by Kay.
I do want to say, like, one thing that's been weighing heavily on me since we went live just now is that Nobody probably knows that DJ C-Mob is actually the professor that introduced the show. So it's definitely a different distinction between the rapper and the professor. So y'all know who's who, you know. So let's introduce DJ C-Mob from out in Portland. Go ahead.
What's up, everybody? C-Mob Husseini, he, him, his. I'm your Portland organizer. Portland as in on the West Coast, Portland, Oregon. Yeah, all things crimmigration, immigrant refugee protection, civil rights protections related out here. We try to organize and hold down. And yeah, appreciate being here in this space with my colleagues. Pass the baton to our professor, Karim Golding.
Karim Golding. Professor Karim Golding, New York organizer for Freedom to Thrive, street advocate, crimmigration advocate, anything for righteousness, fighting that good fight, abolitionist, reformist, all of the above, just in the fight. And we'll get back to Kay and the questioning now. Let me put my professor hat back on.
All right, perfect. Let's get into it. So I want to jump in and ask you, what kind of legal tools are available to protect our communities from any type of deportations?
So there are many legal toolkits from ALIC, different toolkits from different organizations and schools. Currently, FTT and Harvard Immigration Resource Clinic, I believe, no, Refugee Clinic. I'm saying that wrong. HIRC, we've been working on a toolkit for about a year now that involves, this is the first toolkit of its kind to involve the input of impacted individuals and people from the community, and not just lawyers, people with personal experiences, and developing that alongside students. So that's something that FTT has been working on. I myself, we're looking forward to launching it in the new year. And I don't think it could be complete at a better time that now that Trump is coming in and threatening mass deportation. So that's one of the things that will be available in the near future. But there are currently other toolkits out there. If you look at immigration toolkits, if you just search on Google, it'll be helpful to find some toolkits that can assist you if you don't have an attorney.
And are there?
Say something? Can I?
Yeah.
So speaking about toolkits, right? Mm-hmm. So I found in my role as a researcher, I found a few things online from different sister organizations, and we welcome people to send us, what they're familiar with, because what we're trying to do is put something together, hopefully all those things in one place, and we can share it. So we're going to start by putting some of the stuff in our next edition of our Freedom to Thrive newsletter. So please subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and you'll find some of that stuff in our newsletter. But there are toolkits from our sister organizations that outline, what you can do, who to talk to, if you live in this state, who you can reach out to, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll be putting that information out for folks to use. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that into the space. I guess my next question would be, do undocumented immigrants have any rights in the United States, like state versus like federal?
Okay. So one of the things that anybody, and I'm not an attorney and this is not legal advice, just make sure I put that out there. But anybody that is present in the United States is protected by the Constitution of the United States. So you might hear the mayor of New York saying that illegal immigrants and undocumented immigrants don't have constitutional protections, and we're going to do this. You still have due process. You still have procedures of the court. That is federal. Immigration as a whole is federal law. So that's where you have to find your due process at. The states, through contracts and different things with ICE, start to engage in immigration enforcement, but that's through contracts, and that may not be all the way legal. In most cases, it violates the Fourth Amendment because you cannot be arrested based on nationality or what's the other one? Help me out, C-Mob.
Is it ethnicity?
Ethnicity,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Those that doesn't establish probable cause.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that also. I know you mentioned the toolkit earlier. Do you want to talk more about like the toolkit you've been working on?
Okay, so with that toolkit, because I've been working on it for a while, me and C Mob.
Mhm.
One of the main things is why I'm excited about it is because it has the voice and the input of people that have been through this, impacted individuals who've been in ICE detention, and how we'll do our listening sessions in the future. That will be the focal point. Is it is advised by folks who have been through it. We're not putting out a complete toolkit until we have the input of folks who actually had to live through it. It's very different for somebody to say, well, this is how it goes. This is a uniform thing. We all know that immigration law is nothing uniform about it. There's nothing straightforward. So everybody has different experiences and different things that they go through while in detention, while on ankle monitors. So we want to have the toolkit informed by these lived experiences. Another thing is another toolkit that I've been proposing to work on is just something of a temporary injunction. So if you face mass deportation, I would like for folks that have final orders of removal to seek some kind of legal advice or legal resources in their community and have some type of document on a flash drive or something that they can walk around with come January. So if Trump issues an executive order saying that he's going to put out mass deportation, have that document where you can sue in court and ask the judge to put a temporary injunction on that executive order and virtually stopping your deportation if it comes to that. Because if you have a final order, it'll be very difficult to get a stay of removal. And there's other Supreme Court rulings that recently came out that says that the federal government cannot, well, the district courts, not the federal government, but the district courts cannot necessarily intervene in removal proceedings. And it's always been that way, but they're clarifying a lot of these rules right before Trump takes office.
So can I? So I want to make this distinction and make it very clear. So stay removal is completely different than trying to fight for an injunction.
Yeah, well, yes. So any court can issue a stay. The district court can issue a stay, but they usually say, well, we can't interfere in the deportation proceedings. The appellate court can, the federal appellate court can issue a stay of removal, and the BIA, which is ICE or DHS, can issue a stay of removal. That stops it on that level. It stays it for a period of time until your removal proceedings is complete. So you would have to file a request for a stay along with a legal argument on why you deserve a stay, what warrants a stay of removal in that period of time. An injunction, it just basically the challenge to the executive order or whatever law is basically saying that this law cannot be enforced while this proceeding is ongoing. So when that executive order is challenged, so if we say we're going to stop DACA today, right, and somebody files a request for emergency injunction, and that court says, okay, we're going to put the emergency injunction out, you can no longer just stop DACA in that period of time. You would have to continue, and they'll have to make rules on how to continue DACA, but you cannot just say, oh, we're going to start removing DACA from recipients.
This is very interesting because one, it sounds to me that the more that people know that there are legal tools available,
Yep.
there's ways to fight back your detention, your deportation proceedings, and your removal order, right? At the same time, groups of people like DACA recipients, temporary protected status recipients, DALE recipients, support action labor enforcement recipients, can also together fight back against the things that Trump himself and some of his other people have said, you know, in order to put him in deportation procedure and in order to do this massive deportations. So it will be interesting to see and make sure that as many people as possible know that there are these tools, there are these resources, and and again, just as we'll continue doing a little bit of advertising, we're going to try to put these things together in a place that are, accessible, and organizations that may be near you to support you with this. But I think it's important to do that clarification that you can fight both at the individual level, but also, and even better, collectively, right? Again, some of the things they're saying. But I know that Kay has more questions, but one thing that has stood in my mind, the back of my mind, is this idea that you are going to Trump recently confirmed what he promised during the campaign, that they want to get rid of citizenship, birthright citizenship or something citizenship, children of people whose parents are undocumented. Like, how's that gonna work? Birthright citizenship is it protected by the Constitution? Was that just like a Congress, an act of Congress? Like, how does that fit into this picture?
So Trump is trying to issue executive orders to reverse years and years of constitutional law, congressional law, things that Congress has already passed. To me, it feels in a way that he's just getting people riled up, right? How much of it can he actually do is the bigger question. And to the point that you made, that we have so many tools, sometimes when you're distracted by the emotion of somebody saying something, you forget that you have all of these tools in your backyard and you're going out to Home Depot to go buy new tools. You have all of these tools that you've already have laid out. If you've been in detention, if you've worked for free at a detention facility on the forced labor, there's a possibility for you to get a U visa, right? There's so many different ways for you to go about getting the relief, and the lawyers aren't telling you because, oh, it's harder work. It will take longer. I don't want to have a case that might last 6 years, but I only got paid $2,000, right? So I just want the immediate gratification as an attorney, and the clients want the immediate gratification too, so they'll go with the quicker thing. The importance of us putting these resources together and encouraging people to think in different ways about how to approach their relief that they're looking for is very important, because now you can see different scenarios. Now you can say, well, oh, I didn't even think of that. I had this experience. I didn't know that there was a benefit for that. I didn't know that there was a protected status under that. So having this information is very important to people. Sharing the information is even more important.
Edwin, did you have anything else to add, or?
Oh, I have a lot more questions, but I was actually hoping BJ CMAD would also chime in.
Well, I think when it comes to a lot of the removal proceedings, one of the biggest things that I kind of want to reflect on is the building of this tool that Karim has been working on with the Harvard Crimmigration Clinic for a while. Being able to illustrate the different steps in a format that works not only for those in legal advocacy, but also for those that we're advocating for, is one of the most important things, period. And I just wanted to share, like, I know our tool is not out, but this is something that that's been worked on for a little bit. I've had the privilege of kind of joining in mid-flow and really learning a lot also, but I think this is an impressive tool, and I'm excited for actually coming for FTT to be able to come together with this tool, finalize it at some point, and get it out. It's just determining, the network that will use this tool, the network of attorneys who can support this tool and be supported by it. Trying to, at this moment, trying to like iron out things like once it's published, how widely we can have it accessible. What outlets can be used to be able to help maintain and grow tools like this broadly. And so I think it's just, despite what we're looking at with this incoming administration, this current administration has not helped us in the last 4 years anyway. So I think the process and the preparation is going to be, nothing really has to change with the anticipation of this administration. The work will continue, and I'm actually very hopeful looking at and having been participating in this stuff. It's pretty dope.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. I want to do a quick time check. I feel like we're coming up on time for this segment, so just wanted to do a quick check-in with you all.
I think we're good. The one thing that I actually wanted to ask all of you, but in particular Karim, is the notion of, all right, if a lot of this stuff is going to be basically a constitutional battle, how does the Supreme Court factors into all this? We all know that we have the most right-wing Supreme Court that, in recent years, and some of the stuff may end up at the hands of the Supreme Court justices, and questions like, jurisdiction, when a governor says, no, I'm not going to collaborate with mass deportations, the new head of ICE already said, oh, we don't care, we supersede, with the federal government, we don't care. And then
that's crazy too.
They fight, with each other, and then it probably will land, at the hands of the Supreme Court. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Karim, about that scenario, and also the timing? Because a lot of those legal battles, take years to resolve. But they want to make I'm sure that they want to, make this administration and the whole right-wing movement, in particular the sector that it's against immigrants, people that look like you and I, they want a quick victory, and they're going to try to put a lot of pressure into, their folks in the Supreme Court.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I don't think it works that way. For several reasons. Like if we take DACA, for instance, and a lot of these justices made a determination that DACA should stay in place, right? From somebody that reads and studies the law, they basically said that legally they can end DACA. But as the people, we decide. So as a culture, we decide what is the cultural norms. And the Supreme Court makes decisions based on the changes in what the culture is. That's how the law works. So the law is something that's continuously growing, but we have to be active in that, the outcome. So if we sit down, they'll make a decision that they want. But if we're active, they have to kind of go along with what the people, in the direction of the people. As far as the governors disagreeing and saying what's a sanctuary state and that they won't cooperate with ICE, that's a twofold thing. The governor is saying that I won't violate the Fourth Amendment because there's no warrant power to arrest anybody for immigration purposes. If I violate the Fourth Amendment, or if my officers violate the Fourth Amendment, they're subjected to lawsuit. They know that, but they're not telling the people that. So if we arrest these people illegally, then we can be sued. Right? And ICE is not footing that bill. Also, what happens with a lot of these cases is that the government is funding the state.
Right.
State programs, receiving the benefits. As a part of those contracts to receive those benefits, you give up rights for the privilege of receiving the funding. So a lot of these things already work in tandem. When it goes for litigation and the levels that it will have to go through, it has to have to go through the district court, it'll have to go through the appellate court, it has to go before it gets to the Supreme Court. And then once it gets to the Supreme Court and a decision is rendered, then Congress could still come back and say, well, we're going to solidify this law or challenge the Supreme Court further since the Supreme Court has made this ruling. Congress now intervenes and amends whatever statute that they need to amend. For me, being in detention while, the Supreme Court was in session, I saw a lot of victories as far as it comes to immigration from those courts. They made rulings, and maybe because I like to look at the cup as half full than half empty, their rulings were things that we were able to use, that I've personally used to get people out of detention. So it's seeing what the language is and what's being said. So not arguing from an emotional standpoint lets me hear exactly what's being said, what I need to correct, and what I can do with what you just said, because the little gifts. So like the Padilla case, the Pereira case, the notice is not a notice if it doesn't have a date and time. Those decisions came from this Supreme Court, this body, and that's been running.
You mean the current makeup of the Supreme Court?
Yes. So the current makeup of the Supreme Court has given a lot of leeway in the immigration and created arguments in circuit court splits across the board. There are big splits going on in terms of when is a notice to appear and does it give an immigration court jurisdiction if the respondent doesn't know when his hearing is.
Bro, we're gonna have to have another, like hour-long episode for you to break down each, one of those court cases, because that is very, very important, and is at least from an organizer perspective, I'm not familiar, and I know a lot of my friends who are organizers are not familiar with some of those. So we should be on the know, about those things.
Yeah, we should definitely know. We should also give it the same strength that we gave to DACA, and literally say, like, this just came out, this individual is challenging the interpretation of this law, and we agree with it as the people, and kind of like say, like, hey, the court, because it's about perspective, right? Arguments, legal arguments is about how you see it and who has the best argument. Not necessarily that somebody's factually right, but if the people are saying we're factually right, then what can the court do?
Right. Fascinating stuff. Okay, any last questions for this segment?
No, I think I do have one last question. I wanted to circle back. I know you mentioned like flash drives, with like folks putting like different like documents on the flash drives. That's like an idea, like folks carrying those around. Mm-hmm. Do you think it would be cool to do some sort of like clinic or program around like, or even like a checklist, like document where like educated folks on like that idea?
So I be asking, I be putting it out there into the universe, and whatever we catch, and to just get the flash drives, put the documents on there, make it easy for people to use, but also understand if you get detained and you have this flash drive, you also have a legal right to maintain this flash drive, because this is your access to courts. This is your legal work. This is your legal documents, and the jail cannot take that away from you without facing repercussions, and how to go about if that is taken from you, what to do in those scenarios. So those are definitely some of the things that I would like to do.
Awesome stuff, man. I think we're gonna continue this conversation. We're gonna dig a little deeper in future episodes. But before we move into the next segment, I wanted to mention two things. One, please subscribe to our channel. Click, like the channel, and that way you'll get notified when we go live. Send us your thoughts, your comments. We'll be happy to hear from you. Pretty soon, we're going to have an opportunity to, and the technology will help us, take calls into the podcast. So stay tuned. And lastly, on the screen, you'll see our link tree. So you can subscribe to all our social media, the newsletter, obviously, et cetera, et cetera. But hoping to grow our audience. And CMAV is doing something that I'm not sure what that is, but
I'm trying to point to the link tree.
The link
there
tree.
you go. There you go. The other thing I did
The
want
other way. The other way.
It's the other way.
There you go.
the other thing I wanted to mention is that we at Freedom to Thrive, we want to be informed, from our own community, what's going on, and that those conversations will help us develop, a work plan and where we go, from we are. So we'll be conducting listening sessions in different parts of the United States with our sister organizations, with membership of their sister organizations, and we'll hopefully play a supportive role in some of the things that they're are going to try to do, whether it's a public action, some legislative push, or some legal action they may be interested in taking. We're not a huge organization, but we have a lot of relationships, and that hopefully we'll be leveraging our relationships in order to support, communities and and the work of our sister organizations. So stay tuned, for our listening sessions. We want to inform our work with the conversations that we will be having. So now, having said that, I'm gonna hand it over to my bro DJ CMAV, who's gonna talk to us a little bit about what's going on in our next segment, Off the Street.
For the sake of the podcast and just in our audience, I'm actually not a DJ. They're just having fun with me. But I'm far from it, and I'm not a rapper. But yeah, no, this is our closing segment. It's what we call Of the Month. So, welcome to Of the
My
Month.
bad. I would call it Off the Street.
Right. Word. But it's a segment where we shine a spotlight on things that are causing more harm than good. In this case, we're talking about tech today. So this month we're going to highlight the tech of the month, and we're calling out ShotSpotter, as well as related tech. What is ShotSpotter? Sound Thinking. They've rebranded. Already starting off very confusing here, but it's a gun detection system, and it's copycat tech, and that's our highlight for bad tech of the month. Let's dive into it. So what is ShotSpotter, Sound Thinking, and this related tech field? Specifically, it's a network of microphones placed in cities that claim to detect gunfire and alert police. Sounds like a good idea to some, but here's the kicker. ShotSpotter doesn't work as advertised. In fact, according to an article in The Trace, just came out yesterday, it's a massive waste of taxpayer money and a dangerous tool for policing. So first off, let's explain this. ShotSpotter is wildly inaccurate. Studies show it often confuses non-gunshot sounds like fireworks, cars backfiring, even jackhammers as gunfire. In Chicago, an analysis found that nearly 90% of ShotSpotter alerts led to no evidence of a shooting. That's right. Police are being sent on a wild goose chase instead of focusing on real issues. And what's worse, the false alerts can lead to heavy-handed policing in already over-policed communities, especially in Black and brown neighborhoods. We'll get into that with what the ACLU determines as 4 problems that they highlight. It doesn't end with 4, but they highlight it. They start with 4. So first off, they highlight that MacArthur Justice Center, detailing a report, a heavy report from them, that ShotSpotter is deployed overwhelmingly in communities of color, which already is disproportionately they disproportionately bear the brunt of heavy police presence. Second, ShotSpotter's methodology is used to provide evidence against defendants in criminal cases, but it isn't transparent and hasn't been peer-reviewed or otherwise independently evaluated. Third, in addition to their basic tech, they're also utilizing AI algorithms to assist in the analysis. And AI is starting to become ubiquitous in its own sense. But when it's mixed into technologies such as that are already built on a very faulty premise, AI tends to determine truths out of faulty algorithms. And as in with all AI algorithms, that raises questions about reliability, transparency, reproducibility of results. And fourth and finally, still up for debate, is whether ShotSpotter's technology is even effective. We can argue over a technology's civil liberties and implications until the end of time. But if there's not effective or there's no reason, why bother? And nothing is ever kind of worthy of speaking about if you can't really start chasing down a little bit of the money as well. So let's talk about that. ShotSpotter doesn't come cheap. Cities are literally shelling out millions of dollars out of police budgets, therefore expanding police budgets, as they love to do.
And if I mean, and sorry to interrupt, but I have to say, in the city of Boston, for instance, Mayor Wu is trying to push the expansion of the contract not only for ShotSpotter, but some of the things like behind the scenes.
Yep.
So municipalities are doing it. Like some of them are very open about it, but and saying, "Oh, we really need this. Is really going to help us, stop crime or." Find out what crime is happening. The research has shown us. New York just put a 9-year a report from what they've been looking at in the last 9 years, and they found that it doesn't work. But the point is, some municipalities are doing it like very, very behind the scenes, and there's a lot, like you said, a lot of money that is just being handed over. Under this guise of homeland, under this guise of security, to this, private corporations, who are now, by the way, expanding into other things like license plate readers, facial identification, and
we have license plate readers all over Washington D.C. right now. So if you look at every single cop car in Washington D.C. on the back of their trunk, they have plate readers mounted as camera systems on the trunk of their vehicles. So a lot of these things are being tested out, and now they're being fed algorithmically into something that's going to spit out algorithms that are based on very, very bad data. So, yeah, with what's happening, with the amount of money that's kind of going into this critical sense of spending. And I say critical because a lot of the information is already well known. There's more data to support that this is faulty tech than there is to say that this is reasonable tech. It's basically feeding our communities a sense of fear, and budgets, especially budgets that make no sense, thrive off of people's fear. It's the justification for those budgets to get pushed through. So yeah, instead of addressing the root causes of gun violence, like poverty, lack of education, mental health care, things that truly need funding, cities are basically throwing their money as behind this tech as like a band-aid that just doesn't work. But there's good. The good news is that communities are fighting back, and they're winning. Across the country, organizers and advocates are speaking out, showing city officials the truth about ShotSpotter. Here in Portland, we won out. It happened through really smart, strong, consistent, persistent, and aggressive organizing, showing up in city council. Take San Antonio, for example. After public pressure and strong advocacy, that city also decided not to renew its contract with ShotSpotter.
Chicago.
And yeah, and Chicago, cities like Charlotte, Oakland, they also rejected or reconsidered their use of the technology. So these victories show the power of organizing. And Edwin, you're fully involved with what's happening in Boston and that organizing in itself, right?
Kind of, but
You don't sell yourself short.
the idea is that there's something that can be done about it, and that our elected officials feel the public pressure and the reality that it doesn't work. That doesn't work, as much as the corporation and other companies, are pushing this technology. It doesn't really work, and it's not needed. Like no one went and said, "Oh, but we're really, really, really want you to have this." What people are saying is, we need education, we need housing, we need to be fed, we need not to be separated from our families, and I think we need more and more and more of that, and that's kind of what we're working on.
Yeah, I feel like law enforcement often times they live in this fantasy of like where it's like they're Batman and everybody else is like these comical villains that just do crime simply because they want to. Not the fact that they're busting crime simply because they're trying to get something to take care of themselves, feed their families or whatnot. And it's not a justification for it, but in a sense, if you're not paying attention to the root causes, then you're basically just living off a system that's just benefiting off of the perpetuants and the root causes of crime, which is lack of health care, lack of proper employment or unemployment benefits and stuff like that. Just all these systemic things that we can begin addressing. These guys are shoving millions of dollars into just bullshit. So the fight's not over though. ShotSpotter and similar tech, while they double down, communities, they've continued to fight back. People are demanding real solutions to violence, not overpriced tech that makes the problem worse. And when communities come together, they can force leaders to listen. According to the same article from The Trace, the company is actively pushing to expand into new cities. They are lobbying hard for federal funding and trying to keep their contracts alive. If you're paying attention, it could be coming to your neighborhood next. So what can you do? Basically, you're hearing about it now, right? Start learning if your city uses it or is considering ShotSpotter, aka sound thinking, or similar tech. Talk to your neighbors, organize, attend city council meetings, ask tough questions like, why are we funding a system that doesn't work? Why not invest in proven solutions like community-led violence prevention programs or better mental health services? But remember that change happens when we hold our leaders accountable. The cities that have ditched ShotSpotter prove that organizing works. So let's keep up the pressure, demand smarter investments, and say no to bad tech like ShotSpotter. So that's it.
There you go. And that's a really good segue to an announcement I wanted to make. So speaking about people coming together and saying we are not going to take this, I wanted to share with you an action that we Freedom to Thrive is supporting in Boston. It was it started organically organized by a couple of grassroots organizations, including Asian American Resource Workshop, including Families for Freedom, the Massachusetts DPS Committee, Housing for All, and many, many others. I think even one of the largest teachers unions in Massachusetts is in support of it, and hopefully the president of that union will speak, because like I said at the beginning, we can't just sit there with our arms crossed and be like, okay, Donald Trump won, and we're just going to wait, see what happens. So this Friday, I mean tomorrow at 3 o'clock at the Federal Building in Boston, there'll be a rally, to publicly say we are going to defend our communities from deportation and criminalization. Not one more person needs to be deported or criminalized, and the demands are very clear. And we need to stop this deportation machine that started during the Obama administration. He created the infrastructure that is not being used. It will be abused by the Trump administration, I believe. We need to keep our communities out of incarceration. Our communities need to be invested in and not be locked up. And we need to make sure that resources go for things that, like we said, we need housing. There's a massive housing crisis in the state of Massachusetts. And, the price, the cost of, renting a basic apartment, it's skyrocketed, like in ways that you wouldn't believe. And this is the case in many other cities throughout the United States. But again, folks are coming together. We're hoping that this, keeps us together, brings us together, and for the next, however months, years, and that we build more leadership, that we share more tools with each other, and that we support each other. So I'm hoping that there's more of these things happening. So I know that in California, the National Day Laborers Organizing Network are organizing some kind of march on December 18th. Our friends from Dignity Not Detention, for instance, they have all the tools that I think you couple with this public actions for people that already have been affected by the system. So we'll hear more from that, but wanted to let people know that we're not just sitting down and waiting to see what happens. So I am going to stop here, and I am going to hand it over to Kate to close us out.
To me, okay.
Well, go, birthday girl.
Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you all are able to tune in to our next episode. And yeah, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Please.
Decriminalize, reparate, liberate.
Thank you all.
DJ said the club closed.
Booyakasha.